Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Supercharge Your Soul's Transformation podcast. Today, our topic is dismantling the third parent and how to prevent your oldest from parenting their siblings. And guess who I have today? An amazing guest and a friend of mine. So she has master's in positive developmental psychology and program evaluation from Claremont Graduate University. She also has 10 years of experience as a project manager. She is mom to 4 and wife to 1. Please help me welcome Maricris Morrison. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dimple. I'm really appreciative of the time with you.
Of course, Maricris. So Maricris, I'm a big fan of your work, and your journey from the Philippines to the US at such a young age is so deeply inspiring to me. So can you just paint a picture for our audience of those early days and the role your sister played in shaping your life?
I would love to, and I would like to set the stage first. So the stage is I am 5 years old. My sister is 9 years old. We haven't really seen our mom in several years. Because of the situation we were in, my mom was working overseas and sending money to our grandparents, and we were living with our grandparents. After about 2 years, she met my dad, and we moved over to the United States, California specifically, when I was 5 and she was 9. What I want everyone to know is that I have a limited capacity of the memories that I have at that time period. And we all know why. It was trauma. It's very traumatic. You don't have a mother figure, and you are moving completely into a different world than you're used to. The brain at that age is so young, it's not storing these memories because these memories are scary. So I actually don't remember, I want to say I don't remember much of anything up until I was in 3rd grade, and I was already here.
Wow.
I didn't know the language. I don't remember my first day of kindergarten. They're just scattered memories. What I do remember is my sister. I remember my sister being there. I remember her taking care of me. And I remember feeling if I am with my sister, everything will be just fine. So that's the amount of pressure I put on my sister. And I was 5 years old. Can you imagine how my sister was feeling at the age of 9?
Oh my goodness. I totally can relate to this. And, our audience will know in the future about this particular story. And Maricris, the reason I really wanted to do this interview with you because your Instagram video, which we'll talk about later for sure. But yes, I resonated with your story, and I was the older sister. I was that person. So your story about your sister stepping in as a maternal figure is so touching and so thought-provoking. How do you think this third parent dynamic affected your relationship with her?
There were so many little things that was affected because of this strange dynamic, but I'll touch on the 2 big ones for me. And the first big one is the emotional affect that this strange relationship dynamic took over us. And it affected us in different ways. For me, as the younger sibling, I felt very secure. I felt emotionally secure because for me, and we're only 4 years apart, but she seemed like an adult to me. She was my mom at that age. So I had a wonderful mom. I mean, she's only 4 years older than me, but she was a wonderful mom. She took care of my emotional needs. I was a very secure child. For my sister, it's a different world, a completely different world. This is a very, very young girl taking care of a very, very young kid. Didn't really have a mother figure for a good chunk of her life. The transition from the Philippines to the United States was very jarring in so many different ways. And so she was incredibly stressed out. And I never knew as the younger sister. I thought she had it put together. I always envied my sister because she seemed like a solid rock to me. And until I became a mom, did I actually realize, wow, my sister did so much, too much for me. And yet, here she is now an adult. She's got 2 kids of her own. And she seems to me, again, incredibly solid, incredibly forthright, just really there. But if you talk to my sister, and if you actually start looking at the way her life has unfolded, you'll notice it all goes back to the very beginning of our childhood. And so while I was secure and growing and happy, she was struggling. Her identity was very wrapped up into being the older sibling, into being a maternal figure earlier than she anticipated. So that kind of stress that you take on every day for a period of time, it shapes her identity. And for a lot of the people that view the real, they resonated with that of just my identity was taken away from me. I don't know who I am without being the older sibling. I don't know who I am as just myself as a person. And so the ways that I've seen it play out is that you could, as an adult, say, I don't ever want kids. I already had kids and I didn't even want it then and I don't want it now. Or I've always loved kids. Of course, I'm going to have kids of my own. And so those are like the two different pathways that I've seen play out. Of course, I'm just kind of giving you broad strokes of the paintbrush instead of being really minute and detailed. But those are the two ways. So we were both emotionally affected and our identities were impacted as well because of our sibling dynamic.
Thank you, Maricris. When you were speaking about your sister, I was actually getting teary-eyed and I was getting chills. And because, no one knows this, but maybe I'm going to declare this on the show today, thanks to you, that I was that older sibling at the age of 10 who was working just to support my family. And I have 3 younger siblings. And you're right, absolutely right. I grew up, I had who else can I be? I just have to be a parent. So therefore, and you're right on the second point, which is I'm always surrounded by kids. Even right now, I can hear my neighbor's kids and my ears are going there. Or I can hear the kids in the neighborhood and they all know me. And it's funny that I always am surrounded by kids because I want to be surrounded by kids because I always feel like I'm the parent. I need to take care of them, which is not true. So, wow. Thank you for sharing that with me. So basically, Maricris, the reason, right now I had to literally take a break from this interview because I actually went back in time, started thinking about all the time that I was working, and I'm still having chills. I may even cry on this podcast, and I don't care. I don't care what anyone thinks about this. This is me. But when I would take care of my siblings, I would say things like, damn, why do I have to take care of them? Mm-hmm. So, Maricris, enlighten me. Why did I go back in time?
Dimple, you went back in time because those memories of you being in a situation that you didn't ask for, that you weren't prepared for, and that you didn't want, it's ingrained so deeply in your brain that the second you're in the moment with me and you're talking about the words and you're letting it out, your brain automatically forced you to think about those memories. Your brain said, you have been trying to shut me out. How dare you? You need to revisit this. If it's moving to you, it's worthy of looking into you deeply with time and letting yourself know this really impacted me. And I think that was the reason why so many people resonated with the real, is because in the present moment, they saw it and their brain clicked and their brain forced them to revisit these memories that they tried so hard to put away and say, no, that was in my past. But your brain said, you have not revisited me. You have not accepted me. And you have not moved on from me. And that's why your brain took you back to those memories.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. This is so powerful that I feel like everyone, and we are going to show this, we are going to show the video of Maricris's reel on this interview and on this topic on what we're talking about, because if I can get moved by it, and I work with people with trauma, but this is a part of me that I don't think I ever healed. And I'm ready to accept it right on the show that I don't think I healed this. And Maricris, all I can say is just thank you for even bringing this aspect of my trauma on this show, and how many other people, how many older siblings even have, and they have this part of them and it hasn't been healed yet. So My next question, Maricris. Many immigrants share tales of, perseverance and sacrifice. So how did your mother's efforts and challenges in America influence your perspective on family roles?
So I knew from the very beginning of being a young child, and you're going to get me emotional because every time people bring up my mom, I get very emotional. Even as a young child, I knew that she was doing something for us. So my mom's story is hers to tell. I can only say it from my perspective as her child. My mom lost her husband, my biological father, when I was about a year old. And in the Philippines, when things are economically very, very tough, and she had a 4-year college degree, but she knew there was no way she could manage being a single mother, a widow to 2 very young girls. She knew there was something she had to drastically do. And that drastic measure was to move away, work overseas and send money, be separated from her children after really experiencing a very traumatic, grief-stricken experience of losing her husband. And I knew growing up, my mom sacrificed. Mm-hmm. So that emotion is very packed with a lot of, I am so much smaller than anything that my mom has gone through. And whatever trials and tribulations I'm going to go through in my life, it will not compare to hers.
Of course. I hear you, Maricris.
And the thing is, and it was hard reading the comments for the reel, because a lot of the comments were mentioning their mom. And the painting that they painted for me about their mom was of somebody very, very different from mine. So my mom sacrificed so many things, and because of her absence, my sister stepped in. The comments that were rolling in was, my mom just wasn't there. Even though she was physically there, she was emotionally not present. And so my older sibling had to step in, or I was the older sibling and I had to step in. So for me, it was, I wanted to defend the moms, but I also wanted to defend the kids, the people writing in and leaving comments on the reel. So when you ask me about how did my mom influence my perspective on family roles, I say it makes me appreciate every single role. It makes me appreciate the mother role very much so, the father role very much so, because I lost my biological father. And it's really tough to speak about that too. But the man that she ended up marrying was a wonderful father. And he pushed education. And I know without a doubt, I am not who I am without my mother and my father and my sister. So I've learned to appreciate every single family role in the family, because that's how I've realized it really does take a village within your own family to raise yourself, to raise the kids. And I've never taken that for granted.
That is a wonderful message, to know that just to raise your kids, you just cannot rely on one parent. You have to have different people, mother, father, kids, siblings, to really raise your kids. And so thank you for sharing your mom's story and her sacrifice, which made you a stronger mom of 4 beautiful children today. Thank you. You also mentioned a profound difference in dynamics between your daughters and your own experience with your sister. So can you share the conscious decisions you've made to ensure this difference?
Now that I became a mom, so my kids range from a 13-year-old to a 12-year-old to a 10-year-old to a 6.5-year-old. 6.5 is a very important age, because you've mastered a great skill in kindergarten, which is reading. You've mastered reading, and now your brain is ready for the next level. Now you're able to defend yourself and your ideas. You're able to spout out, no, this is what I want versus this is what my mom wants. So the dynamic I wanted to set for my daughters is of, you are individuals working together, not against each other. And you're individuals that are based on my beliefs and what's important for me. So there are several things, little catchphrases that I say throughout my parenting experience. One of them is, it's your body, it's your choice. So from the beginning of the relationship between my youngest daughter and my oldest daughter, I would always say every time it pops up, hey, it's her body. It's her choice. And so in saying that and doing that, I've empowered my oldest daughter to say, I don't want to carry you right now. I'm tired too. And so exactly. And then I step in and I merely just support. And I say, hey, Lyra, that's my younger daughter. She's tired and it's her body and it's her choice. And she's choosing to say no to you, who's wanting to be carried, or who's wanting a second snack, or who's wanting another toy, who's wanting something from her older sibling that her older sibling does not want to do, nor does she have to do it. She does not have to do it. So that's one of the ways that the dynamic is completely different between my kids and mine and my sisters. My sister felt extremely obligated to give me whatever I asked for, because from her perspective, my younger sister doesn't have a mom. I'm the mom. So I have to do it. If she's asking me, I need to do it. Whereas the dynamic between my kids is, it's her body. It's her choice. She doesn't have to do that for you. So you can do it for yourself, and then she will most likely do that.
I love that. It's your body. It's your choice. And I wish someone had told me that when I was growing up. And I remember a story. It's like when my sister went to college, she didn't have pocket money. And she would always come to me first. And she'll say, because I was working, and she would say, I need some money to pay off my cell phone bill. Sure. And somehow my brain would work on how can I generate that much income to pay her cell phone bill on top of all the other bills. And then that same night or that week, I would just give the cash to her and I would say, here is the cash, take it. But you're right. I felt obligated. I felt like, where's she going to go? She can't ask my parents because my parents are usually not even there or not working or not visible to us. But oh my God, Maricris, you're like blowing me away. With the way you're speaking, it resonates with me so much that I feel that, damn, there are so many girls, women, older siblings that when they listen to this, they will understand and relate that now they can choose a different way to parent their kids and teach their older siblings to say no.
Yes.
That's powerful. Based on your personal experience, what's the emotional toll? I just really want to know this. What's the emotional toll on an older sibling who assumes a parental role? This is for me, Maricris.
Okay. So, and when we go through this list, Dimple, you're going to say to yourself, I got that. I got that. I got that. I got that. And then you're going to think to yourself, is this really all connected to this portion of my childhood? And I'm going to say, yes, it's all connected to that portion in your childhood. Remember when I was talking and your brain just automatically took you back to that time and space. You're going to experience it again as I go through this list. So one of the things, the question is, what's the emotional toll? Okay. Think of, as an adult, you're placed in a stressful situation, but you're able to have a barrier between you and that stressful situation. As a child, your brain is not developed yet. You cannot distinguish between this threat that's happening externally and you as a person. So what your brain does instead is you combine it and you say, this threat has actually become me. It's in me. It's in me. The stress now is part of you. It's not external from you. And you are unable to make that connection that you need to push the stress away. When you are a child and you're going through a stressful situation and it's not by choice, right? Because there are some stressful situations that you would like to be a part of. Like think of a challenge that you want to do, or a sport or something that's scary, but you want to do it. That's different. This is a situation you're forced into. You're forced to go through it. You have no say. The stress lives inside you, and you are a child, and you are unable to take the stress out of your body, and it just lives within you. So a lot of older siblings, especially older girls, they experience high levels of anxiety that are uncontrollable. They just can't control it. They also experience a high level of feeling the pressure to say yes to everybody.
People pleasing, huh?
People pleasing. It's such a secondary symptom of being placed in that position because you're always constantly saying yes to everybody except yourself. Because what you want to say to yourself is, say no, walk away. It's not your responsibility. Find someone else. Get an adult. Get another parent. Why me? These are the thoughts that you say, but you know that your role, what's expected of you, doesn't allow you to walk away. So now you're stuck. The stress is living within you, and you have to say yes to everybody. So now you're compounding stress on you every day, throughout the day, for years at a time.
Wow.
Years at a time. That's one. The people pleasing is one of those things that people will say, that's not part of it. No, it's part of it. You've been trained to say yes for so long that saying no feels foreign to you.
Yep, you're right. I used to be in that habit of people pleasing, definitely had high levels of anxiety. And I sometimes feel, I feel like I used to, of course, feel like I'm responsible for everything that's happening outside of me. So give me the next point. What's the next one?
Isolation from your siblings. This is hard to say because there's a physical isolation and there's an emotional isolation. And both happen almost at the same time. So a physical isolation is you are physically separated from your siblings. Look at the way that your bedrooms are set up. You will find that the older sibling is somehow physically, or there is a definite, that's their bed, that's their space, that's their room. Whereas all the other siblings are kind of grouped together because they're the kids. You're the parent. So there's a physical isolation that you can see. Now let's talk about the mental isolation and also the emotional isolation. You are a sibling, but you haven't taken that role on. You have taken on the role of a parent. So you'll see that your siblings are closer to each other. They can talk to each other candidly. They have to watch their words with you. They can talk to each other in a way where there's a lot of humor. It's not funny with you. You're the parent. You have a responsibility and you have the judgment. So you are the judge for your siblings. Your siblings are actually a little bit intimidated by you, a little bit scared of you. You're just not the same. You're not the same platform. You're elevated somehow. You didn't ask to be elevated, but you are. And so what happens is you feel that emotional isolation. You become physically isolated from your siblings. You now have moved out of the house. Most likely, often than not, you need physical space as an adult from your siblings because now you have the ability to be physically isolated from your siblings. And you think to yourself, this is healthy, this is good for me, this is what I need, this is what I want. Actually, what you're craving for is intimacy with your siblings. You want to be close. You have the desire. You just don't know how to get there because you don't want to assume the parental role anymore. You want to shed that skin, but you don't know how you can't because the stress is living within you.
Oh my God. Wow. Holy cow. This is crazy. That's why I left New York at the age of 25 and moved to California. I'm like, screw you guys. Sorry to say. But I am done with this and I'm no longer going to take care of you, pay your bills, pay the mortgage. Nope, I need to take care of me. And I think I worked on living my life, what I wanted at the age of 25. Until the age of 25, which means 0 to 25, I was just a parent. And I feel even now I still am. I'll keep checking on them. Hey, what are you doing? How are you? Do you have any problems? Contact me if you have any issues. I don't know why that's the way I talk. Oh my goodness, this is great. Any other points, Maricris?
I want to share with you that I did talk to my sister about this. I told her, okay, I've been invited on a podcast and I want to make sure that I talk to you about it, right? So even now as an adult, I still look to my sister to say, hey, do you approve of this? Whether I implicitly or explicitly say it to her, in my brain, that's what I'm wanting. Do you approve of this, right? Mm-hmm. Is it okay that I do this? And one of the things that she told me was that she knew as a teenager that this wasn't normal. This wasn't healthy and it wasn't what she wanted, but she was okay with it up until I became a teenager. And then I started pushing back. So I started saying, and I don't even remember doing this, Dimple, but I trust her that I did say this. I would say to her, you're not my mom. Stop acting like mom. You're not my mom. You're my sister. I don't remember saying it, but I remember feeling it. So I do remember wanting to have a sister in her. Wanting to joke around, wanting to talk about boys without getting judged. I did want all of those things, but I didn't know either. Are you going through your brain and just...
Yes, because my sister would say, because I would, tell her, don't wear this, it's too deep, or don't talk to this guy, whatever, or your dress is too short. And she will just be like, when she became a teenager, she would say, stop, you're controlling me. You're not my mom.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, goodness. I should feel like, damn. But I thought I was doing, I'm protecting her. I thought I'm protecting her from all the shit that I went through. But I did not know any better. This is amazing, Maricris. Wow. I wait till my sister hears this podcast. I'll be like, you need to listen to this. This is what you went through. This is what I went through. This is great. So,
well, I haven't even mentioned the biggest thing that an older sibling will face, and it's the loss of a childhood.
Oh, yeah.
And they carry that loss throughout their whole life. Throughout their whole life, they go through thinking, I never had a childhood. What is a childhood? Like, how do you act like a child? What does that mean? Because I've always been the parent figure. I've never had a childhood. I don't know what it means to just have fun. How do you do that? What do you mean have fun? I have to make sure my siblings have their homework done, that they're fed. I have to go to the store. I have to sign this permission slip for them. Oftentimes the comments I read was, I have to take them to school and I'm late for my school, but I have to take them to theirs. So the loss of a childhood is probably the biggest things that older siblings face, that they don't know. Why am I doing this now as an adult? Why am I so hyper independent as an adult? Why am I so focused on accomplishing successful things and endeavors? Why? I never had a childhood. I just went straight to adulthood as a 5-year-old. Could you imagine? Well, you don't have to imagine, Dimple. You went through it. So all these things that I'm talking about, I'm talking from the perspective of a younger sibling, but you lived it. So you probably feel very strongly that loss of a childhood is ingrained within you, and all the ramifications of not having a childhood is playing out as an adult. Like, wow, I just really don't know how to let loose. I really don't. Because we were never allowed to.
Oh my goodness. Damn, I wish I can just talk to you for hours and hours and hours on this. But yes, I admit something about my childhood that I always feel like childhood. And sometimes, my siblings will say, relax, have some fun. But for me, my fun is meditating, yoga, going for a walk. It's not anything else. It's just anything that puts me in a space where I'm alone is my fun. And the hyper independence. Oh my goodness. You are so right, Maricris. I can handle any problem in the world is what I feel. Right. But this is bringing up so much emotions for me that I feel like, hey, should I just get some more tissues around me right now? But I want our audience to stay with us. So your post on September 21st resonated with so many people. Why do you think that sentiment, I wish my mom had done that, was so common among the comments?
So again, I'll remind the audience listening in that the comments that were coming in about their mom, And the simplest comment was, I wish my mom had done that for me. And it's such a simple comment, but it's very emotionally provoking to me first of all, as a human being. It's an emotionally provoking statement. I wish my mom had done that. But I want to, again, make that distinction that my experience with my mom was that she was making these lifelong sacrifices for us. And that's why my sister stepped in. The comments that were coming in was, I just have a shitty mom.
Wow. Oh my
goodness. And that made me feel really sad, because that wasn't the experience I had. My mom was not. My mom was an amazing mom. She still is. So to me, my mom is the strongest person out there in the world. The people that were commenting on that reel, they cannot say the same about their mom. So I think that the reason why it is such an emotional reel for a lot of people resonated with it, because they saw me as the mom physically stepping in, and that visual of a mom stepping in and saying, hey, this is wrong, and I'm going to right it. I'm going to correct this, and I will prevent this unhealthy dynamic for the rest of your life. It really resonated with a lot of people, because they went back to the exact moment where they wish their mom had stepped in. And so for a lot of people, it was just, I know exactly that moment. If my mom had just done that at that time, it would have set the stage. I'd be a completely different person. And so now you're talking about identity formation. If that one thing had happened, I'd be a completely different person. Then who are you?
Wow. Oh my goodness. That brings me to my next question. Could you elaborate on the concept of loss of identity that older siblings like me often face? And how does this play out in their adult lives?
So as an adult, they have either already made that commitment that kids are not for me. I've already done that. I've been there. And they don't find the joy in it because they didn't have any joy to begin with, right? They were forced into a situation that they didn't want to be in. And that happened for a continuous number of years. For a lot of people, it's their whole child. So 18 years until they became an adult. So by the time they became an adult, they're like, kids, not for me. But this is a smaller amount of people experience this. They'll say, I love kids. I've always loved kids. I've raised all my siblings. So of course I'm going to have kids of my own. But that's a smaller percentage, because for the most part, the people that are like that enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. So they're choosing it. In a sense, because they enjoy it, it pulls them back into that role. It's a smaller segment of people. Majority of people, they did not enjoy it. They didn't want to be in it. So they're not choosing it for them. And so by the time they're an adult and they can make their own choices, they're going to choose not to have kids. They're just going to choose that.
Wow. Interesting. So is it normal? Sorry, this is turning to a counseling session, but hey.
No, I love it. Keep going.
I have this amazing expert right here, and why not? So is it normal for us, people like me, that have experienced this kind of trauma where we are parenting as kids, to mentally think, oh, we want kids because we see kids with families, but then deep down, we are also relieved that, oh, thank God I don't have kids right now. Like deep down, I feel like I want kids, but then I also fear sometimes, thinking that, oh my God, my life is going to be like this. Like I have to have kids all day, every day, 24/7 a day. Like, that makes my mind. So I battle in two ships. Is that normal?
That is totally normal. Because again, one of the symptoms of being the older sibling in a parent role is loss of a childhood, loss of identity. So part of these questions, having kids is a huge part of somebody's identity. I say to myself, I identify as a mom because it's one of those things that I can never take off again. Once I put that mom hat on, it's on me for life because these kids will be my kids forever. So for a person who has a loss of identity, that's a big identifying question. Do you identify as a mom by choice, not by force? By choice. But one of the things I would advise anyone listening to this conversation is don't worry about that right now. Worry instead about who you were as a child. Like deal with that child wound first. because it is not a wound that can close on its own just simply because you had the kids or you've chosen not to have kids. That child wound is still wide open. It's wide open. So you got to close that. You got to protect that. Close it up to 80%. And then worry about, do I want kids? Am I someone who wants kids? Especially if you're in a position where you think to yourself, I think I'm ready to have kids. Okay, why do you want to have kids? And I always ask, in my friend circle, people ask me about kids all the time just because I've had 4. And one of the questions they'll ask me is, do you think I'm ready for kids? And I go, if you're asking, you're already curious. Like, you're already there. If you're asking, you're already there. But why do you want kids? What meaning do you take from having kids? And some of my friends will say, and then I caution them, after they say this is when I get really cautious. They'll say, I want kids because I want to experience unconditional love. And for them, yes, and of course, and that's normal and that's natural. But if you have a child wound and you're expecting that bringing a child into this world is going to close that wound for you because now you're going to experience unconditional love, you're not going to experience it right away.
Exactly.
You just won't. You just won't.
I totally agree because, in like the work that I do in spirituality and yoga, there's no such thing as bringing someone external and getting unconditional love from that person, whether it's your baby, because the unconditional love needs to come from you to yourself first. Fill up that void. And you're right. Maybe then think about babies or then think about children. Wow. So this transitions to my next question. Let's talk strategies. How can parents be more mindful and intentional about not placing any parental responsibilities on their oldest child?
The first tip I will say is you have to be extremely thoughtful about how you introduce your older sibling to their new sibling. So from the very beginning, I expressed to my oldest daughter, this is your sister. This is your baby sister. I did not say this is your baby. Some people, some parents, and I don't even fault them because it is so cute to say, this is your baby. Can you, I'm so happy you get to meet your baby. But what is that? What message is that actually sending to your oldest child? This is their baby. This is your responsibility. You take care of this baby. I might not be here, but you're always going to be here because this is your baby. So words are extremely important, the way you introduce it. And not just that, but throughout the years. If you have a child who's 4 and above, and I might even say like 3.5 and above, and you're saying this is your baby, you're really misleading them. From the very beginning, you're saying you're responsible. No, siblings are supposed to be fun. They're fun. And it's another support system. It's not a responsibility. So that's the first thing I'd say is be careful and then be consistent with how you introduce your new child to your oldest child. I'd also want to say, as they get older and they grow up together, always tell your oldest child, you went through this. Now it's their turn. You went through this. Now it's their turn. And the reason why I say that to a lot of the parents is because you're establishing yourself as an expert. I'm the parent. I'm the mom. I already know what's going to happen. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. It's okay that you are. But I'm the mom and I'm stepping in. Right?
I love that. I love that. So basically telling them it's not their responsibility and then you taking the ownership as a leader. Like, hey, yes, I'm the leader. Listen to me. You guys just chill and have fun and don't parent the little one.
Exactly. Yes.
Last question, Maricris. You have mentioned the importance of words, like expressing that the younger one is a sibling and not a responsibility. So how pivotal is this verbal acknowledgement in shaping family dynamics?
It's extremely pivotal. It's extremely important. The words that you're choosing, that's just what people hear. The intent behind it, the emotion behind it, the motivation behind it, that's what's driving those words to become part of your reality. So it is extremely important to be mindful about the words that you're choosing to say. One of the things that I say to my kids also is, and I say this to both of the girls at the same time. And then when I have the boys, I say it to all four of them at the same time. You all are a team. You all are a team. You all are each responsible for yourselves, and you're each responsible for helping your siblings, your sister, your brother, whatever it is. So the word that I'm choosing is not, you better take care of them. It's not that. It's not you better. It's not that. It's you guys are a team. I'm team captain. What I say goes. You guys are all following what I'm saying. That's how our family is shaped. So my husband and I, like, we are in tandem with each other. And the words that we're choosing to express for our kids, it's, we are the team captains. You're following what we say. You're not going to step out of line. You don't need to hold that hat of being the team leader. We are the team leaders. You're helping each other. You're a team. You have to learn how to get along. That's one of the other catchphrases I say is, you have to learn how to get along. Sometimes you got to take turns. Sometimes it's his turn. Sometimes it's yours. Sometimes it's hers. You're all taking turns. So that's one of the things that I'll say is you just got to be really mindful about why you're saying what you're saying. If a parent comes in hot-headed and say, you better take care of that kid. You better take care of him. Why aren't you taking care of him? What message are you sending to your child? That they're responsible for your child. No, that's your child. You're responsible for them, not your siblings, not your kid.
Got it. Wonderful, Maricris. So how can our audience reach out to you? And I do know that you have these wonderful planners that you created because you are an organized junkie, which means you love organizing stuff. And I think I would love to have those planners for my kids if I ever have kids. And that's a question, still a question mark in my head. But how can our audience reach out to you and get your planners?
First, let me explain why I even created these planners in the first place. So I am a project manager by trade. I've been a project manager for about 10 years now. And there's this really wonderful saying that I love to say all the time. And I say it to myself as a motivational speech. I say, our whole is worth more than the sum of our parts, right? So me as a person, the value that I have as a person, it's not in the separation of me being a master's degree holder of positive developmental psychology, project manager, mom, wife. It's not in those separate little boxes. It's if you combine them together, my value has increased exponentially. So 3 years ago, when my sons were entering middle school, they really struggled. Their little brains couldn't handle it. And they found it very challenging. So me as a mom and a project manager and a person who's very interested into brains, I came up with a solution, which is they need just a tool. They need a tool. They need a planner of some kind. And so I started researching planners, got them a couple, didn't like any of them. And I must have bought 5 different planners to just say, okay, which one do I think the boys are going to like? Brought them in, talked to them. They were like, I don't like it. I don't like any of them. I was like, I'm going to make you one. And I made one because of how I think their brains are developing. And I made one in a way that I think, okay, this is actually appropriate for where their brain is at developmentally. So you can find me on Instagram under Planner Nation. It's funny because it's not a nation of planners. It's a nation of planners. People that plan. So that's why I started. That's how I started it. And then the way the Instagram channel has developed is I started talking about parenting. And right now my kids are tweens and teens. And so all my parenting tips are with the tweens and teenage. And that's where you can find me.
Perfect. And we will add the link to the planners on our show. So just make sure that you go and check it out. She has created these planners for us moms to be, or moms, so that our kids can actually be more organized. And Maricris, all I can say is thank you for being on our show. I personally got so much out of the show, and I know our audience will too. And I would say I loved having you at our show. Supercharge your soul's transformation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dimple, for having me on here. It's been really nice to be able to sit back and say, this is a topic that's really important for me. And a lot of people didn't realize it was a topic to begin with. But once they saw that reel, once they start listening to what I was writing down, they were like, oh, you have no idea how many people have lived through this. And it was very cathartic for them to see the reel, the way it played out. And I just enjoyed reading the comments. So thank you for having me on here and for inviting me. And I've had a really good time.
We are so enlightened. Thank you, Maricris.
Thank you.